be right now, and how's the weather? Now, it's interesting that the climate changes now and again, and there has been a lot of concern about the way things are going. This is Now Tell Us, and I'm your host, Anthony Moirore. At Now Tell Us, we have guests come and tell us stories, they come and inspire us, they come and educate us on a subject that they are passionate about, and always we have great guests. Now, recently I asked people to contribute to tell us, what would you like to hear at Now Tell Us? And I got some requests to talk about climate change. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And we have someone who's passionate on this subject and knows a bit more than I do on climate change. Her name is Beth McDaniel, and she's here with us. So stay right there. Please share this episode with all your friends. If you have a question regarding climate change, please ask. If you have any comment to make, we appreciate feedback. And yeah, we're going to have a great time today at Now Tell Us. So why don't you join me as we go together to meet our guest today, Beth McDaniel. Here we go. Hi, Beth.
Hi, Anthony. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you here. We appreciate you coming.
Thanks.
Yeah. Where in the world could you be?
Where am I right now?
Uh-huh.
I'm sitting in Austin, Texas.
Wow. Texas. That's my dream destination.
Not right
Someday
now. Not
Yes.
right now. It's so hot.
Why not? Why
It's
not?
so hot.
Oh, okay. What's the best time to come to Texas?
The fall, the winter can be good. We can have very cold snaps, but usually they don't last very long. And then the spring, and then also in the fall and the spring are some of the best music festivals. That's what we're known for in Austin. Okay, is a lot of good music festivals and festivals around movies and even innovation. So it's a lot of fun. South by Southwest is one that a lot of people know about, and Austin City Limits Festival, but they're always in the fall and the spring because that's when we have good weather. It's been about
Mm,
100 up to 100. It'll get up to 107 today. That's very hot for us. And I grew up in
well,
Houston, which is also hot.
hmm
And I know that the temperatures have risen in the last 40 years, because I've never experienced temperatures like this.
hmm Yeah, I mean, it's a concern all over the world of how things are changing. So, and this is why we are talking about climate change today, because my audience says, hey, would like to know much more about, we would like to discuss about climate change. So I thought of bringing you here. But before we go deep into that, maybe you can tell us, who is Beth? Who exactly is Beth?
Well, okay. So I was born in Houston, Texas in the late 60s and grew up there. My dad was a chemist, my mom was a housewife. I went to the University of Texas, studied finance, thought I would be kind of in business, banking, and stuff. I ended up ultimately, you're going to hear that I'm in the paint business, which is interesting because my dad actually bought a paint business on the side, and that's actually what paid for all of their kids to go to college. But anyway, and somehow I migrated back to that like 40 years later, 50 years later. um, but I went to college and then I came back to Houston. I went to law school after a few years and decided I'd give that a shot because working in the financial world was not really that interesting for me. And so I grew to like law a lot. I became a transactional attorney. That's what I do, is like work within businesses. I'm not usually in the courtroom. I've done some courtroom work in my early years, but this is where I settled in. I like business, and I kind of grew to be a part of that in whatever business we were involved in, and like an embedded legal counsel. So
Mm,
that's my
that's good.
background. And then ultimately I got married to a scientist. I guess we always kind of looked for what's familiar to us.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I married one, and in fact, he became best friends with my dad. They were just, I mean, he was the scientist my dad never had, because none of us were. But and then we started a business shortly after we got married, and it's called Reactive Surfaces. You'll hear about that. And that is a company that is in the paint and coatings industry. We innovate within that space, and we create functional coatings that react to their environment in some sort of positive way. Okay. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
coatings up until now have been just, for aesthetics, for color, or to protect the underlying surface. And coatings are everywhere. Okay. Look all around you,
Mm-hmm.
wherever you're at, and everything that you see, including the walls, the floors, the tables, your computer screen, your eyeglasses, the books, your clothing, everything has a coating on it. If it's manufactured, if it's man-made, at some point
Mm-hmm.
there's. So anyway, that's the space within which we work, and that's what I've been doing for the last 20 years.
Wow. That's a rich, rich bio. But let me point this out. You don't look as late 60s lady, no?
Wow, you're so kind.
It must be in the genes, or maybe being in the line of scientists, so you know much more than we do. What is it?
Uh, I don't know. I've just always been kind of immature, or maybe that's it. Maybe it's just my attitude.
Uh, yeah, you look much younger, but that's good. So you're gonna find out even what it is that you take on a daily basis, the practices you, I mean, to stay as young as you look right now.
Oh, well, thank you.
Now you're in the paint industry. Now it so happens that yeah, I have a link with the paint industry because I at some point I was okay. I still do. I paint.
Oh, wow.
I'm an
Okay.
I'm an artist, and there's been so I got this opportunity to hear a concern from many people that paints are responsible for a negative impact in on the climate. How now that we come to this point where they are contributing positively, have you had that yourself,
Okay, well,
and how
let me
has it
point
been?
out something about our paints, and your audience is probably wondering, well, how does this have to do with climate change? And we're going to get to that, I
Uh-huh.
promise. But
Oh,
we're not a manufacturer of paints, so we're not a Sherwin-Williams or AkzoNobel or PPG. Those companies are the big paint manufacturers. We don't do that. We are in the
okay.
lab. We're innovating. We're creating new things up to the point that they are put on the shelf and someone else can manufacture them. And so they're shelf ready, so we'll develop products that are shelf ready, and then
Okay.
a manufacturer like a Sherwin Williams or something will take that, will license that technology, and then they'll go to make it. But we're constantly like creating within that space. And yeah, the paint industry has had some scars, on its face because of some of the, they're a big industrial, emitter. Okay. So they need to take
Mm-hmm.
care of their CO2, just like all the other big manufacturers need to do. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there's been lead-based paints, and throughout history, there's been issues with paint. Paints that were solvent-based. Now we use mostly waterborne, so they're not dangerous to inhale. Remember, we used to, you might not remember it because you're probably younger, but we used to have to, like, if you painted a room, you had to get the hell out. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
those fumes could kill you.
I've experienced that. I'm not a late 60s guy, but I've experienced that.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and so what we've done is we've worked on, like I mentioned, making functional coatings that react to their environment, along with being decorative and protective of the
Hmm.
underlying surface. But what we use, my husband is a biochemist. He is the inventor. Dr. Steve McDaniel. And what he knows, what his innovation, original innovation is, and what we do in our company is grab from nature things like biomolecules, like enzymes and peptides, and things that are naturally like prolific around you. So you're living with them right now. We all are. There's billions of them around you. They're not dangerous to you and they're non-toxic, but they have a
Mm-hmm.
functionality in nature. And so what we want to do is harness that functionality and put that into a coding system and say, hey, this is antimicrobial peptide out in nature. Let's add that to a coding system. Then we have an antimicrobial paint, and I'm talking about when it dries and for
Mm-hmm.
as long as the paint is there. And then you can spread it on all sorts of surfaces. And like I just told you, surfaces are ubiquitous, right? They're everywhere. So we might be
Mm-hmm.
talking about the surface of a wall in a surgical suite, okay, that was painted with non-toxic paint that's antimicrobial, so that people don't get all those secondary infections when a doctor goes from one room to another and touches a surface or something. It's not, it's they try, but I mean, these things are, you know, they're rabid, these viruses and stuff. And so people pick up a lot
Mm-hmm.
of stuff in hospitals. So it could be used in that kind of situation, but it could also be used on a small catheter that goes inside the body. Because like I said, those things are manufactured, they've got a coating on them. Maybe we put it on there so you don't get an infection in your body. So there's a whole bunch of
Mm-hmm.
different uses and stuff for applications for this kind of functional coding system. And that's what we're in the business of doing. And we've been doing for 20 years.
Okay.
We can get to the climate change one and whenever you want.
Yeah.
They're wondering why is she talking
Let's
about
talk
this?
about the climate change. Your interest, what, and first and foremost, because even as we are talking like this, there is a population, a percentage of the population that don't have the slightest idea what is this climate change they are talking about, and what has it got to do with me. And maybe you can bring us to that point where everyone should be concerned about the climate change. What is it, and why should we be concerned?
So climate change refers to the trapping of greenhouse gases in our atmosphere. Usually that's done because of man-made emissions of carbon dioxide. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a heat trapping gas. I'm not a scientist, so I'm going to disclaim, I'm not going to go deep into the science of it, but
Mm-hmm.
that's what's happening, and it's warming the atmosphere. And so it's these man-made emissions, like the burning of fossil fuels and a lot of manufacturing stuff. Everything is emitting CO2. And we got to take care of it, okay? It's causing extreme weather conditions all over the world. Everyone is a part of it. Um, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to, at 1.5 degrees Celsius over pre industrial levels, that's one of the landmark levels that everyone looks at, okay? We're talking about, like,
Mm-hmm.
the United Nations has these groups of scientists that come together and evaluate all of these things. So I'm just reiterating what's in there. But 1.5 degrees Celsius over pre-industrial levels, at that level, if we hit it, and we're at about 1.1 right now, and if we hit it, then that's when we start seeing the death of like coral reefs all over the world. Imagine losing the Great Barrier Reef. I mean, that would hurt my soul. And
Mm-hmm.
I've never even been there, but I care about it. And I think a lot of people do. And plus, it changes the ecology of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Things like I was just watching a show. So, all over the place, we're seeing, and then that doesn't even mention like all of the weather that we're seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I mentioned, it's hotter here than it's ever been in my life. And I keep on telling people the depressing news that, well, be grateful for it because this is the coolest summer you'll ever face in your life,
Mm-hmm.
probably. So I'm like the doomsday damsel, but no, it's just a serious thing. There are things that we can do. I'm going to tell you about one of them, but climate change is causing a lot of things that you don't even think about necessarily. Like, think about this: in warmer conditions, mosquitoes flourish. So mosquito-borne diseases. I was just watching a show on this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
They are very, very concerned with things like Zika virus and all of the different mosquito-borne diseases and tick-borne diseases. emissions. And no,
Mm-hmm.
that's all over the world. I mean, no one wants this. So anyway, it's one of those things like if an asteroid was heading towards Earth, we'd all need to band together and do something together to face this you know, potentially cataclysmic situation. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
with, we're going to start seeing migration. I mean, there are going to be places, whole places within the earth that are unlivable because they're going to have too many hot days and our bodies are not meant to acclimate to it. So we won't be able to live in certain areas like Texas, probably where I live. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and we're not talking about in thousands of years. We're talking about in 50 to 100 years, it could happen like that. Certain places are not going
Mm-hmm.
to be livable. There are going to be too many hot days. And so you're going to see migration, like the likes of which we've never seen before. With that, what does that come with? Um, Disease, civil unrest, war. I mean, we're facing some serious stuff. And so let's get
Mm-hmm.
serious about some solutions. And yeah, and there are some, and we need more.
Yeah. Well, that's why we should pay attention to what's happening to our climate so that we can avoid such devastating situations in our own
Yeah,
life.
climate change is not just for scientists anymore. And that's why your audience
Mm-hmm.
is asking about it because everyone's starting to come to this realization. That's what happened with us. Everyone's starting to come to this realization that this is starting to affect me. And it's
Mm-hmm.
not just in our, we always thought someone was doing about something about it, but are they? So you have to start getting involved. And we need everyone on the team.
Yeah, everyone should be on the team. Now, going back to the carbon capture coatings that you talk about, and as I was reading your profile, I discovered that they are to get the carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. How does that happen, and how far? I mean, what's the process?
Yeah.
Maybe a little science,
It's
even though you are not a scientist.
Yeah, it's not intuitive. So let me just tell you about it because it's never been done before. Okay. So don't worry
Okay.
about it. So carbon capture coatings are another one of these platform technologies that reactive surfaces developed. Okay. And so
Mm-hmm.
whereas we had been using like biomolecules, like I mentioned, like enzymes and peptides, those aren't organisms. In this case,
Yeah.
we wanted to look to nature and say, okay, what pulls down CO2 naturally? Because that's the business we're in. Let's try to put that in a coating system. And
Okay.
and we thought algae does that. Okay. And so algae is a full grown organism. Okay. It's a single cell
Mm-hmm.
bacteria. It's not like a big thing, but it's, an organism. So that was the first time we had done that, but we were successful. We put it into a paint and we know how to make paint do things. Okay. That makes it
Mm-hmm.
habitable for the algae. And you might ask, why paint? Why don't you just let algae do its work? Algae is doing
Mm-hmm.
all of the work all over the world in thin coats, thin layers. Okay, so there's microscopic algae on all the ocean layer, on all the ocean surface, and in all the land surface, and it's doing most of the work of photosynthesis. Trees and all that stuff does too, but algae is much more efficient. Just trust me on that. It's true. 8 out of the 10 breaths you're taking right now came from ocean algae. Okay.
Okay.
And so algae is the best at photosynthesis. So we wanted to put that into a coating system. And then, like I said, coatings are everywhere, right? So we
Yeah.
need surface area. And but things that we can do with coatings also are make it better for the photosynthesis, like make it so that if algae is just out in nature, what it does is nature has a cycle, a carbon cycle. That means that it's
Mm-hmm.
pulling down CO2, but it's also dying and releasing CO2. And so we're always going in a cycle, and nature has a perfect balance, really. It pulls down just a little bit more than it releases of CO2.
Yeah.
It's our man made
Mm-hmm.
emissions that are throwing us out of whack. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what we want to do is we want to pull that CO2 down like algae does, but we don't want it re-emitted. We want to just start grabbing it from the atmosphere. And that's called direct air capture. And so
Okay.
we have a system where what we're trying to do is not paint buildings with it yet. What we've developed is a paint that would be like used in a module. Okay. And we paint a whole bunch of sheets with it and we
Mm-hmm.
put it in a module. So we have a very densely um, painted. It's not painted on the module, it's sheets hanging in the module.
Okay.
Okay. And
Okay.
so we have a whole bunch of surface area in that module to do the work of photosynthesis. And then we just stack up a whole bunch of these modules. It's just a more
Mm-hmm.
efficient way of doing it than painting on the outside of buildings because we can control environment in the module, et cetera, and so we can control it a little bit more. And so we can make it the most efficient it can be. And so it's a paint that pulls down CO2, holds it in the paint, or we do something called biochar with it, which is kind of making it into a charcoal briquette. It's a way of burning things without oxygen, but it makes the CO2 stay there and not be re-emitted. Okay. And that's the key is it's got to
Okay.
stay for at least 100 years, more like 1,000 to be
Yeah.
safe. And so we have ways of doing that. Mhm.
And my imagination or my curiosity goes to the fact that these sheets of that you put the coatings on, is there a special place like you take a field, or do you encourage people to use them on their buildings and things like that? How does it go so
Yeah.
that
So
we cover
commercially, we're
a
still,
wide
mhm.
yeah,
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
yeah, so that we cover a wide area of our planet?
Yeah, so that's the modular system for you, okay? And so these modules, we're
Okay.
just talking about like a 1 meter cube shipping module. You've seen them all over the
Hmm.
place. They're called
Yeah.
IBC tote. You see them at shipping grounds. They're like kind of a milky plastic module, like 1 meter cubes, and it's got a steel casing around it. You can get them
Okay.
for like 50 bucks, okay? We're not manufacturing this yet, okay? We're coming out of the lab
Hmm.
and building a pilot facility. So unfortunately, you can't buy them yet, but when
Okay.
we get funding and get rolled, more funding and get rolling on the commercial embodiment of this, then yes, it will be available. It'll be something that you could put in your backyard and stack them up. That's the beauty of it. It doesn't require any good land. It requires some space. But like, for instance, you told me you're from Kenya. One thing that we've
Yeah.
done is modeled a facility that would pull down 1 million tons of CO2. And we modeled it in Kenya in the Rift Valley,
Okay.
birthplace of civilization, which is, I think, so cool. And what it is it's we model it there because it's warm and we need a lot of light for the photosynthetic reaction. It's not that we necessarily have to do it there. There are other places in the world, but we needed to pick a place that we could say it has these conditions and this would be good. And there's enough water vapor in the air and things like that. And then because our paint knows how to pull down water vapor, also knows how to pull things from the atmosphere that it would need, that the algae would need to photosynthesize.
Mm.
But anyway,
Mm.
we could put it. What we imagine is that we would have local farmers from that
Okay.
area because there's no one like farmers that knows how to grow shit, right? Farmers know how to grow shit. That's what we want. And we want people to know
Mm.
how to grow stuff in that area. So we definitely want to involve the local community in doing so. And they could take some of their land that's not being used for farming or something and make money off of it because you can sell these carbon offset credits. There's a commodities
Mm.
market for that. So you can actually, if you're pulling down CO2, there's value to that. And so
Yeah.
anyway, that's kind of one of our plans. There's a number of plans, but that is definitely one of them.
Wow, that's good. And it's good that you're thinking about the humanity. You're playing your part by researching, by coming out with something that is going to reverse the negative impact
Yeah,
that
no,
the climate change what we are witnessing there.
that's very
And yeah, we encourage everyone to do likewise, those who are listening. And I guess that you have several other ideas that you have not put to use that someone may listen to and say, oh yeah, I can go into that. What should people do? Because it's all our concern now,
well.
to reverse this impact.
What can an individual do? I mean, when
Yeah.
this becomes available, I would say this is something that an individual can do. And there's never been, aside from things like not cutting down your trees in your yard, okay, then there's never really been something that people can do to offset their carbon footprint. And so we
Mm-hmm.
want to, and this would be something that, we could fashion in that way. And we will probably also create an exterior coating too. But in the
Mm.
modules, the one that I'm telling you about, it's very, it's just more efficient. And so we see that as a way to do, to really pull down the CO2. Because again, this is serious business. It's not just a commercial thing that we can try to make money on. We got to make this work for our children, our grandchildren, and everyone after. We can't be the generation of people that didn't do anything about it. Sorry, I'm getting preachy, but yes, there are individual. So yes, you have
That's
to do
good.
what you can do, and so
Yes.
if you can drive an electric car, that's good, and all of the things that you're already doing. If you can have solar panels on your roof, then that's good, and but another thing to do, and I always tell people this. I don't know where your audience is in the United States. I always tell people, look, excuse me, our lawmakers and our corporations, if we're shareholders, they work for us. And you need to tell them what you want. You need to tell them
Mm-hmm.
that you need the corporations to clean up their act and take on carbon removal technologies like this. That's just a cost of doing business. If you got trash or something, you got to pay to get the trash taken out. Okay. But if you're letting
Mm-hmm.
carbon dioxide, then you got to take care of it. It's not that we have to quit doing all, manufacturing. That's not really the best solution either, but you got to clean up your mess. And so this kind of technology could help with that and there are others too. And so we need to demand that from our lawmakers. We need to demand that from our corporations. Speaking,
Yeah, yeah.
they work for you,
We need to demand.
huh?
We're gonna start. What do you call it? A campaign and demand for things that we are going to benefit from. Not only us, but our children, our children's children, because we should be thinking about future generations. It's not about being preachy. It's about being concerned about where we are heading.
I am.
Yeah, we really appreciate you coming to our show. Thank you very much, Beth, for being here with us and sharing with us all that you have shared with us on this topic.
It's been a pleasure, Anthony. Thank you so much.
Yes, we are almost coming to the end of this show, and it has been a good one. And I know there are people who are seeing you and would be interested to know much more about this thing that you're doing and follow up. We are always eager to know about new technologies and the change that you're going to make for us. How can people follow up with you?
The easiest way to do that is to go to our website for our company, and it's
Hmm.
called Reactive Surfaces. That's like surface of a table. A lot of people say, there you go. A lot of people think I'm saying reactive services. It's not services, it's surfaces.com.
Surfaces.
Mhm.
Okay. Reactivesurfaces.com. Yes, you can go there and find out more about what Beth is campaigning for. And in what way can they be of help to you? Maybe sharing the website, maybe do you have now, because I hear this is something that is a project in the making, and I have seen some big projects like this have a GoFund, or I mean, you've got to raise funds to do you have such thing? I don't know.
We're not doing it that way, but yeah, we're raising funds in different ways.
Okay.
Like in angel investors, private equity. Um,
Oh,
yeah.
okay. And I wish you all the best, and we at Now Tell Us would want to hear this technology is advanced for the sake of all of us.
Well, I hope you have some in your yard sometime soon.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Now, before you go, we'd like you to leave us with a few words that we should always remember. Which are they coming from Beth? Few words that we should always remember. Which are they? Just anything that you'd like us to always remember.
Well, you're in the motivation business, and I would say that find what you're passionate about, and then and it doesn't have to be your job. You can do it outside your job, but find what you're passionate about and what you're good at and what you're already doing, and find a way to help. You know, by putting all those things together, especially your experience. I mean, it's like my parents had a paint company when I was a little kid. Somehow that came full circle. And
Mhm.
just figure out what's coming full circle for you and go for it, because you might change the world. What the hell? Give it a try.
Oh, wow. Wow. Thank you for that. This goes out to everyone who's listening to us or watching us. Beth has found her passion, and that's what she's pursuing for the sake of the world, not for only herself. It's for the sake of the world. Now, find your passion. Find that thing that can impact the world in a positive way and go for it. You never know. You could be the change that we've been waiting for. Just go for it. So that's just about it. And now tell us. Well, once again, thank you very much, Beth.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's really nice. Nice to.
Yeah, this. Yeah, thank you. It's been a pleasure having you here. This has been Now Tell Us, and we also thank you, all, our audience, whether you're watching this live or you get to watch this after it's been recorded. We thank you for taking your time and watching. And that's about it. This has been Now Tell Us. I've been your host, Anthony Murori. And together with our beautiful guest today, Beth McDaniel, we are saying bye for now. And please pay attention to the climate change. Bye.
Bye bye.